All right. Well, welcome, Chip, to the NJ Environmental's Fundraisers Gathering. And we're excited to hear about this Donate Now, Pay Later by Be Generous. So the floor is yours.
Perfect, because I'm excited to share about that. And since we have such a small group here, I think it'd be really helpful for me just to understand, where each of you all are coming from and what your organization is and what you do. I'll start. So obviously, my name is Chip. I'm with Be Generous. We do, our mission used to be we're just do Donate Now, Pay Later, but we do that, and we're going to talk about that in depth today. But really, what our mission has become is getting funds in the hands of nonprofits as fast as possible. That's really what our mission ends up being. And so I've been in the nonprofit technology world for 15 years now. I have worked for some pretty big companies, Blackbaud, which you probably know who Blackbaud is. I was there for a number of years. I've done some startup work with nonprofits that were acquired by Blackbaud, which is how I got to Blackbaud. And I've really spent like I said, the last 15 years having these types of conversations with nonprofit executives and personnel really around technology and how to best leverage it to accomplish the mission. It happens to be in this iteration of my software career. We're talking about a fintech product, so financial technology. How can we get specifically donations? But I have a real wealth of experience working with nonprofits in all levels of software, from CRMs to accounting softwares to, even email campaigns, Illuminate at stuff they did at Blackbaud. So that's me, and I am based in Pennsylvania, so not quite in New Jersey, but relatively close. I am about an hour northwest of Philadelphia, and obviously work from home. Got 5 kids. They're all here somewhere. They may show up. Who knows? 2 dogs, 2 cats. So, and live out in the country. So the cats actually have jobs here to keep the mice away. So that's me. Anyone else want to go? I mean, I have a certain order here, but I know my screen is not your screen. So
I'll jump in. My name is Lauren Swern. I'm with the New Jersey Highlands Coalition, and my colleague is Brielle, and I'll pop it over to Brielle.
Sure. Hi, Brielle Olshan with the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. I am in northeastern New Jersey, and I have 2 cats. Erica, I see you came off mute.
Yeah, sure, I'll go. My name is Erica Kalachi. I'm the Assistant Development Director at the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. And oh my goodness, I almost said Highlands Coalition because I used to work there. And that little muscle memory was fighting to come out. But I'm with the Conservation Foundation now. We're a statewide land trust organization, but we also work in environmental policy. And I am working from home currently, but we have an office in North Jersey on a preserve.
And my name is Nancy Faraday. I'm with DNR Greenway Land Trust in Princeton, and I've never been with the Highland Coalition, but I like this meeting every month because Lauren does a great job of preparing us and doing follow-up. And we have a lot of questions with FinTech, as you call it, and we're especially interested in trying to get almost point of purchase donations when people are walking our trails and on our preserves to inspire them to make a small donation while they're there.
okay. And how are you doing that now?
With signage, we're sending them to our donation page with signage. Okay. And we're actually doing events where we'll collect it in person. But we are told by people they were so inspired and they wanted to donate and then they didn't get around to it.
Gotcha. Okay. That's very helpful. Let me ask a quick question. Can you see a big screen that has green in it and a person holding what looks like a coin? Because we actually use coins nowadays, right?
Yes.
All right, you can all see that. Okay. So I typically like to have conversations, and this is a small enough group where I'm not going to ask everyone to go on mute. I'm not a big fan of holding your questions to the end because then we get to the end and we don't ask them. So I have obviously a slide deck that we'll walk through, but it's more of a conversational piece. The first thing to know about Be Generous is that we like I said, our goal and our mission is to get funds into nonprofits' hands as fast as possible. That is what our stated goal is. It started a year and a half ago, well, 2.5 years ago, but the Donate Now, Pay Later product came out last summer. It started a year and a half ago with Donate Now, Pay Later, but it's since moved into other aspects as well. But on the Donate Now, Pay Later, how many of you are familiar with Buy Now, Pay Later? You can say yes or no, or don't know what it is, raise your hand, that works too. And just so you know, my camera's here, my screen's here. So I'll be looking back and forth at everybody. And so Buy Now, Pay Later is obviously the ability for, if you're visiting an online merchant, or really even terrestrial now, if you've been to Walmart lately or Target, you can actually do Buy Now, Pay Later with Affirm at those terrestrial stores. You can go ahead and do it. But it's an industry that's over a decade old. It is it's not a new concept really. I mean, I grew up in the terms of layaway, when you could go do layaway at a store and you could, you know, pay over time. The only difference there is that the product stayed at the store until you bought it. In Buy Now, Pay Later, you make a payment, you make a purchase online, you can go have their product shipped to you, you can go to the store and pick it up, and you pay over time. It's billions and billions and billions of dollars a year. It's primarily driven by people under the age of 45. It's primarily what it's driven by. There's not a whole lot of 85-year-old people who are doing Buy Now, Pay Later. And so the Donate Now, Pay Later concept really was born out of that. Dom, who is our founder, he was and still is friends with the CEO of Affirm, and he was in her office and they were having a conversation about nonprofits and how, you know, it's hard to get, you know, nonprofits have these liquidity problems, right? They get 30% of their donations at the end of the year, but they still have to survive the rest of the year. And so there's many times throughout the course of the year where they're just strapped for cash. Not that the donations won't come in, it's just they're not coming in at the time that they wanted to. And Dom literally said, well, why can't we do Buy Now, Pay Later for nonprofits? And that's where that concept was born. So that's what we've done. So Donate Now, Pay Later, you know, really is an ability for us to allow a donor to make a donation to any nonprofit in the United States. That donor pays nothing that day. In fact, that donor doesn't pay anything for 30 days, but the nonprofit at the point of donation gets the full amount. And so as an example, if someone were to give one of you $100 on our platform today, by Wednesday, you would have that full $100, even if that individual has decided to make payment plan of 6 months. So they're going to pay whatever 100 divided by 6 is every month. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of conceptually what we do. All right. What's really important to know about Donate Now, Pay Later for the donors is that this is a completely free product for them. We do not charge them interest. We do not charge them late fees. We don't charge them additional anything. If a donor comes and gives $100 to the nonprofit, that is all the donor will ever give. Even if the donor is late on 5 of their payments, even if it takes a donor a year to pay off what they said they were going to do in 3 months, it is only ever their donation amount. We do not charge interest to donors. And we want to be really clear with that up front. You know, in Buy Now, Pay Later, there is interest that's charged, right? It's charged interest. And on top of that, what we didn't want to do, what we wanted to be able to say to any nonprofit is that we are a better alternative for your donors than credit cards. If they give to you on a credit card, they're paying most of the time, you know, 20+% interest at this point, because very few Americans pay their credit cards off each month. It is some abysmal, like 10%, something like that, right? So the most of your donors who are given to you via a credit card are paying interest on that, whereas we don't do that. We have over $100 million right now that's available to give to donors, or to give to donors to give to you, right? So that's what we do. So there's a couple things that we think that we do well. You know, we talked about this earlier. We solve a liquidity process, problem for some nonprofits. You know, if you're able to get, you know, more donations, because people will give more, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You know, you can, instead of having to get 30% of all your funds in the last quarter of the year, you can spread that out more evenly across the board. One of the biggest things that we are doing is we are seeing a significant, I think it's in a slide, let me kind of go forward. Let me find it. I'll stop. I'm gonna hit escape and go back one slide real quick. We'll come to live donations here in a minute. I want to see if I know I have it here somewhere. I'll just talk about it and we'll go to it. So what we know is that the average online donation right now is $121. That's what, and not for us, that's just across the board. So the average American who gives to a nonprofit right now gives $121. Our average donation on our platform is over $500. And the reason is actually pretty simple. It follows the same trend line that we see in the buy now, pay later space. So the average retail transaction in buy now, pay later is 82% larger than the standard just go to Amazon and buy something, or go to Target online and buy something. When you give people the ability to spread their payments over time, they will always either go out of pocket more on the retail side, or they'll always give more on the nonprofit side. Okay. And we do something very, very unique. If you do buy now, pay later, if you've ever done it, you'll know that your first payment is actually due that day. You typically have to pay something like $10, right? Or $25, depending on the length of the purchase. And then your next payment is due in 7 days. That's typically what it is, 7 to 14 days. And they really want to truncate that within no more than 3 payments. There's a reasons behind all that. On the buy now, on the payment side, the reason why they want to have a payment that day and then 3 more is because that allows those organizations to not have to comply with the Truth in Lending Act, which is when we talk about things like interest rates and all that type of stuff. Additionally, charging that day is pretty standard. But we took an approach that we were not going to charge anything to the donor that day. In fact, we were not going to charge anything for 30 days because we had a hypothesis in the beginning that people would give even more if we did it that way. And the reason is, for the most part, for most of the donors that will give to you today, if they were to give to you today but not have to pay anything for 30 days, they will go through at least 2 more pay cycles. They'll get paid 2 more times. Right? And so when you think about the donor psychology behind this, a donor typically will go to a website because of a call to action, or to your what you were saying earlier, they're walking on a trail and you have a sign that says, wouldn't you love to continue to support these beautiful trails? Here's a QR code, click here to give to us. They're going to your website with the intent to give. So we've already established intent. Now what we do, and typically what a donor has, the donor already has a dollar figure in mind, right? Very rarely does a donor just go to a website and be like, I don't know what I'm going to give. Let's just see what happens. How many zeros am I going to put when I start typing in? When will it stop? No, they know, yeah, let's give $25. Let's give $100. Let's give, $500. What we are doing is we're disrupting that just a little bit. So what we're saying to the donor is, hey, let's make that gift to the nonprofit. But you don't need to pay anything today. In fact, you don't have to pay anything for 30 days. And when that first payment is actually due, it's a fraction of what you actually were already intending to give. So wouldn't you want to give more? And we do know that over 90% of the donors, when they are polled after a gift, they always say, I would love to give more to this nonprofit. And what always is the holdup is just time and resources. As someone who has, $1,500 liquidity available to give that day can't give $2,000. They just can't. They don't have it available to give. And what we do is we spread that over time. So that same person who has $1,500 that they could give today, who is going to get paid in 4 weeks, a $5,000 bonus. Now that same person who looks at this and says, oh, I could actually give $2,000 today. The nonprofit's going to get all that money immediately. And I'm just going to divide it over the next 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. I certainly will have it because I know I got a $5,000 commission payment coming in for a sale I made. Right? When you don't have that option to give, what you are relying on is that donor to say, all right, I'll remember to come back at the end of this month, when they're not emotionally moved, when they're not emotionally drawn, when there's not a campaign going on, when there's all these other things happening. So we purposely pause 30 days to capture that double paycheck and to disrupt the donor's mindset to help them think a little bit bigger. And so what we've seen is we've seen the fact that we are driving much larger donations. Like I said, our average donation size is $507. Yes, Nancy, I see you can just say Hi, can I talk? You don't need to raise your hand.
I wanted to let you finish. You know, this recently happened to me because I am an NPR radio fan. So I give to WHYY regularly, but they had a challenge. So they had a challenge that had to be met in a day where a donor was giving $10,000 if they were able to match that day.
Mhm.
So this would have been a time where if I had this option, I would have probably given more because it's almost like I wanted them to meet the challenge. Does that still work in your?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of this. What we're trying to do, like I said, back to our mission, is to get funds in the hands of nonprofits as fast as possible, right? And so all we're doing, I equate it to like this time box. We're just expanding the time box for the donor. We're saying, hey, I know that you wanted to give $100 today. You were already intending to give that. What if you could give more? What if we could enable you to give more? And we're not charging a donor. So that's really a key thing. We're not charging the donor extra. We're not saying, sure, you're going to give more. You're going to have $500, but then we're going to charge you an interest rate of 15% to give that. We're saying, no, this money is going to the nonprofit. Now we'll talk about our fee structure because I mean we have to make money. We have to stay in business. Like there is a fee that is paid, but it's not on top of the donation. Does that make sense?
Is the fee paid by the nonprofit or the donor?
A little bit of both, which is what's really interesting how we've structured this. So our fee structure, we're a fintech company, to be really clear about that. And a fintech company does not make their money like a SaaS company. So a SaaS is a subscription as a service company. You pay a monthly subscription fee for the software, right? Fintech is a transaction-based company. That's what we are. And so when you're transaction-based, the only time we make money is when an actual donation happens to a nonprofit. And so it's just like if you have a credit card, if someone swipes a debit card today, someone gives them a credit card, you're paying 2, 3, 4, 5%, depending on what you've worked out with your provider. So we're the same thing. So you will average over time 6.5% per donation is what you'll pay. So at $100, you'll net out $93.50, right? That's what you would net out on a donation. We say that because our actual rate is 12%. It's like 12 point something. But we have donor cover that donor cover is when we ask a donor at checkout, hey, would you like to add a certain percentage to your donation to help offset the transaction fees that a nonprofit has to pay to be able to enable this service? And by and large, we have about a 90% opt-in rate. And so about 90% of our donors choose to add 7% to their donation to help offset the costs. Now they can do the entire amount if they wanted to give 12%, but we have found the magic number, the magic ask number where you get the most coverage is 7%. And so so that's what we typically recommend our nonprofits to ask for. And why we have a higher opt-in rate than most other fintech companies is because we take whatever we're asking them to add on to their donation, we're also spreading that out over their payments. So think of someone who gave $100, they're going to pay it over 9 months. That's a little over $10 a month. We ask them to add 7%, so it's $7, and they're going to divide that by 9. So we're saying, could you add 63%, 63 cents to your monthly payment? You get opt-in rates at a very, very high rates. Right, so that's our fee structure. We don't charge for anything else. There is nothing else that we charge for on the donate now, pay later. We are incentivized to make sure donations happen. And so when we were designing this product into this process, we specifically wanted to stay away from the SaaS world. I was at Blackwell long enough to be yelled by enough nonprofits who were paying $1,000, $2,000 a month for a software package that was still not up and running after 6 months of implementation. And I just, we understand that being in the world for so long, the nonprofit world, that every dollar really counts. And when you're allocating resources and dollars and you're not seeing the return, it's really critical. That's a problem. And so we just didn't want to be in that boat. And so we're just a fintech company. Does that make sense? Okay. So we've talked about this, our average donation is $507. The average online donation is $128. This is our fee structure, and I can send this to you all so you can see how it works. We also have this really cool guarantee. We guarantee to any nonprofit that in the first 100 transactions on our donations on our platform, you'll raise at least $10,000 or we'll pay you the difference. So what we mean by that is if you had 100 donations on our platform and it got to $8,000 total, well, then we're going to be cutting you a check for $2,000. So that's our guarantee. It's a pretty simple concept. We are an additive solution. We're not a subtractive. And so what I mean by that is there's nothing that you have to stop doing today or stop using today to be able to use Be Generous. We are an additive platform. So we don't say, hey, if you want to use Be Generous, that's great, but you can't use PayPal or you can't use Stripe or you can't use, whatever, Give Butter or whatever program you're using to collect donations. We are designed to be additive. So we stand right alongside with them. We're an option for your donors. And it's really simple. It's not overly complicated.
I have another question.
Mhm.
I think you're exactly right that the under 40 crowd is not using their community bank, with a debit card and a checkbook. So
Mhm.
the under 40 crowd is using money management services and willing to pay for it.
Mhm.
But if you could go back to tell me about the Truth in Lending Act, as
Mhm.
far as you don't have to follow that, is that what I heard you say?
We do.
Okay.
And the reason why we have to is because we allow repayments of up to 12 months. So that's 12 payments. So we are required to comply with all Truth in Lending Act compliance, as well as we are regulated in all 50 states by 50 different banking association rules. So that makes us heavily regulated, which candidly is in a nonprofit's best interest. There's one other firm that does something similar to Donate Now, Pay Later, but they collect a payment that day, and you can only do repayments of only 3 times. So that way they don't have to comply with Truth in Lending.
So what about the banks that already sponsor us? How do they feel about this?
I don't know that I understand your question exactly. I don't know why they would feel good or bad. We're not taking anything from the bank.
Right.
We're adding money into your donation, which allows you to do your mission, goes into whatever bank account you're going to have it in. They earn interest on the deposits that you have. So I don't know why I've never had a bank upset with us. We have banking partners. So we have a Drake Bank as our primary lending partner, who's given us $120 million. They're based in Minnesota. For our other product, our Accelerate product, our banking partner is Sunrise Bank. I'll talk about Accelerate here in a minute. And then we have 3 or 4 different other banks that are at various stages of signing agreements with us to give us money to give to donors to give to you. But if you maybe can elaborate on why you think a bank would not like this, that would be helpful. But I don't really understand why they wouldn't.
In New Jersey, we had an influx of de novo banks or community banks, and community banks were probably the nonprofits' best supporters at one time. And all of that is changing as we speak. But I just wondered if the community banking relationships we have would be miffed. I mean, they probably wouldn't even say it out loud. So I just wondered, who some of your banks are. So you don't have like a Wells Fargo or.
No, we're not. We're not. Currently, Bank of America is not a partner. Now we put our money in a Bank of America account, but we don't partner with them. That's not where the funds are coming from. And we purposely just so you know why we do Bank of America is primarily because of the Silicon Valley Bank issue that happened back in March. So we actually all of our money was in Silicon Valley Bank. That's because that's where you're supposed to put your money if you're in fintech and you're a younger company, and that's where our investors told us to put our money, all our operating money, not our loan-based money, but our operating money. So we just moved it all to Bank of America.
No, I mean, I definitely understand this, and I've seen other companies do it. So, and your percentage is basically, what fintech is charging, and the younger crowd doesn't seem to mind it because banks had their fees as well. But I guess like in a land trust where we have a generation gap between our new audience and our steadfast donors, how do you bridge that? How do you I mean, the parental reaction is always the parental reaction, and we're all growing up and becoming our parents, right?
I mean, I had a conversation with a nonprofit this morning, along the similar lines, and their average donor is like 70 years old and would never use a product like this, right? It's just and I said and I think that her comment was, and I'm paraphrasing, but I don't want to necessarily make my older donors mad that we're offering this, and then and then they're upset about the fee structure. And I said, well, I think you're looking at this different in a different. I didn't want to say wrong light, but I think the issue is you have to explain to your older donors that you're not going to be around forever. If you want this organization to thrive and to continue to grow long past your legacy gift, long past what you're able to give, we have to be able to market and take our mission to the younger generation. And this is where the younger generation is right now. And if we don't do that, the legacy gift that you just gave us, because this is one of the donors who had given a big legacy gift, the legacy gift that you gave us in 10, 15, 20 years is going to be worthless because we're not going to have enough to keep the budget, the lights on. So okay, can you
So
go
what
show that
would-
to mom, please? I'm sorry.
What? That's okay.
My son just came down here. I'm in a meeting. I need you to go upstairs. Later I will.
I
But
remember.
so I would say that, you just let them understand, like, it's okay if it's not for you, because we're not getting rid of anything we're currently doing. You can still give how you have always given. It's just for a younger generation. We're adding an option for them to give to us.
No, I'm still intrigued. I just know that, platforms like Venmo are also.
Oh yeah.
You can donate by Venmo. And that's, a younger person's money management tool too, but it's not buy now, pay later. It's buy now, pay now.
Yes, it's just a little different. And I would just say you just have to communicate with them what you're trying to do. And again, I think it's really critically important that when you're doing this, when you're talking to the older generation, you're not stopping what you're already doing. They can still give and interact the way you were.
Do you have any metrics or stories to tell from a capital campaign? So say there's a capital campaign to build, let's say a daycare center. So everybody wants this daycare center built because they're going to be using it. So how long can me, if I want this daycare center built, if I wanted to give a $5,000 gift so that I have this daycare center down the street, but I don't have that kind of money to give, how long would it go out? Is it only 12 months?
Yes, we're currently only 12 months. That's as far out as we can go. The largest gift size is $20,000, so we can do one-time gift of $20,000. The smallest is 75. What I would say is where we've seen this work well with capital campaigns. Number one is people who want to give more but understand that they've got it's going to be 6 months until they can actually fulfill that gift. We can get the money right away to the nonprofit. The nonprofit starts working on the project immediately because they have the fund. Oh, I didn't cover it. There's no risk to you. If they default on their payments, that's on us, not you. So once we send you the money, if in your case, let's say they gave $5,000 to this daycare center, they gave it to you on January 1st. By January 5th, you've got all the money. You start breaking ground. They're going to pay it, pay it off over 12 months, and come middle of March, for whatever reason, they lose their job and they have to restructure payments, or they just ghost us and they disappear. Well, we're not knocking on our door saying, hey, we need our $4,700 back because we only got $300 from the donor.
But to that, we would not want one of our donors to make an emotional decision and not be able to follow through, and then feel like we almost
which is great.
Cause them to make an emotional decision.
Yeah. Because again, we have to comply with truth in lending, and because we're regulated, we have a couple options there. If a donor, for whatever reason loses his job, has an issue, whatever, they can call us and we can restructure their entire payment structure. So if they were paying $100 a month for 6 months and they lose their job, we can be like, oh, you know what? Why don't we stop? No payments this month, no payments next month, get back on your feet. And instead of $100 a month, let's do $25 a month. Because we are regulated and we own that, we have full legal ability to do all that stuff. But before we even get there, when we vet somebody, so when they go through our process, they do tell us who they are, what their date of birth is, what their address is. Now we don't pull their credit, so it doesn't impact their credit score, but we know who that person is. And we can make a very, and this takes 2 seconds, but a very quick decision as to where that person who's saying they want to give $5,000 can actually give $5,000. So there's no scenario where you have an 18-year-old kid who is working a minimum wage job, who has $300 in his or her bank account, can give $10,000. It
But
would never. Go ahead.
Who would do that customer service if somebody did make an emotional decision?
We do.
But would it all be chat online?
So yes and no. They can call us. We have a number. We're required to have a number. They can call us. And we encourage them to call. They have a dashboard. They can chat with us online if they want to. Most younger donor, I mean, I'm not young, I'm in my mid-40s, but even I would rather chat with someone online than talk on a phone at this point. I just so we have that ability, but we do all that. We do all that work. That doesn't go on the nonprofit.
It's interesting that you can make a call as to someone's ability to afford the donation based upon the metrics you just stated.
Yeah, so there's 5, and what's really interesting. So there's 5 key metrics: it's date of birth, full legal name, full legal address, their cell phone number, and their email address. With those 5 pieces of information, we can positively identify you at 99.99999% accuracy, and we can determine if you are actually able to give and pay back what you say you're going to give. It's the same way buy now, pay later does it. They don't ask for your social security number. They don't ask for anything. It's all on those PINs. But you as a nonprofit, you get all that information. So you get their real date of birth, you get their real number, you get their real mobile number, you get their real email. It's all your information. We don't sell it. We don't use it for anything else. It is all yours.
What service are you using to justify their credibility if it's not background check?
It's in essence, it becomes a background check. It doesn't impact their credit score. But we have there's a bunch of third-party services that we use that are constantly updating their data to understand who people are. It's literally the same services that Affirm uses, Klarna uses, all the buy now, pay later companies use to quickly be able to determine who they are. And it's really only one time, right? Once we determine who they are, then it becomes a lot easier to get through the process.
I have a in the weeds question, but I wonder how the tax acknowledgement works. Would that go to the company since the company's technically the one making the transaction?
It goes to the donor. So the donor gets a tax acknowledgement. It's no different than when they give through a credit card. If they give right now on your website via an Amex card, well,
Right.
Amex is sending you the money. It's coming from Amex, but you're giving the donor the receipt, right? So it's the same thing with us. Yeah, we're sending the money on the donor's behalf, but the donor gets the tax credit.
So at what age are you seeing the donor shift to wanting the rewards on their credit cards as opposed to using a money platform like this?
Yeah, under 45. Our average age right now of a donor is under 45. It's something like 42, 41. You got plenty of donors who are, 50s and 60s who they want the points on their credit card and they want the miles, they want this. But right now, 67% of Gen Z people do not have a credit card.
Right.
So there's no rewards programs for them to do. Like they don't have it anymore, right? It's not a driving factor for them. And so you will attract a younger donor base here. It'll be a younger age donor. It's not going to be mid 60s. It's going to be 40s and below.
How does, and this is off topic, so you don't have to answer it, but how does FinTech foresee this under 39 age group beginning to build wealth?
How does FinTech see it? I mean, from a market point of view, they see it as an exciting time. I mean, there's like what is it, like 60 some trillion dollars of wealth getting ready to be transferred over the next 20 years.
Mm.
Right? I mean, so from a fintech point of view, it's a great time to be a fintech company. You know, what we're trying to do is be socially responsible with it and not just like, hey, let's get this $39 trillion and see how much interest we can charge and how much money we can make off of that. What we're trying to say is there's thousands, tens of thousands of nonprofits doing good all over the US. Let's give them faster access to the capital that we know is available at a reasonable, a reasonable return, because we need to make money, but at no cost to the donor.
So does Be Generous only do nonprofit, or
We only do nonprofit. We are solely focused on nonprofit.
And
You
for
know,
how long have you been in?
About 2.5 years. We've been around. The platform has been available for about a year or so. So it is a newer concept with nonprofits. I equate it to, there was a point in time, it was before I was in nonprofit tech, but there was a point in time where nonprofits were beginning to think about, so should we do credit cards on our website? But all of our donations come through checks, and we only have to pay 25 cents to have it deposited, or whatever the rate, whatever it was. Why would I want to do credit cards when I get all these checks mailed to me all the time?
I'm 62 years old and I don't have a checkbook.
Yeah, but as I'm saying, there was a time when that question nonprofits were asking, like, why should we switch, from a, terrestrial, let's get a check or collect cash, to have this donation platform online. And so this is it's not as seismic as a shift for sure, because we're not getting rid of online donations. We're just saying there's another way, there's another avenue. And we do know that the more ways you give people to give to you, the more successful you will be in raising funds.
Right. No,
That's a
Chip,
proven fact.
Is this a product that the data integrates with databases that are not Blackbaud?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. So we can integrate through Zapier webhooks. If we can do it that way. We can also, you can export all the data out via a CSV file and then go into any CRM that you're currently using.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Do you deal with donation pay?
I had to look at who they are, but I mean, we have yet to find a vendor we can't work with. It's not complicated. This is not a complicated technical product. It really isn't.
Right.
Our platform is easily integrated into any website through like 3 or 4 different ways, and so we have yet to find a way we can't integrate.
And how about acknowledgements? How does the donor get acknowledged? Because if we start to get a lot of $25 donations, our way of acknowledging the donor is going to be cumbersome.
Yeah, so we handle all those acknowledgements if you want us to. Most people want us to, and so there's just a template, an email that we'll put together during onboarding that says, how do you want to thank this donor? How do you want to acknowledge it? How do you want to give them their gift receipt? What header do you want? What do you want it to say? And it's all automated.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're not going to ask you to do hundreds and hundreds of letters.
Now, how about when we tell the donor, so we're sending the donor a message, however we decide to send it, and they have several ways which they can donate to us, and we already can give off that fee to them or accept it to us. But if a donor if we send a donor to your platform, do they have the opportunity to get interested in other causes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not our platform. Remember, it's your website they're going to. If they happen to click on donate or donate now, pay later, then they'll have access to our platform. But they're not going to our platform first and then going to you. They're going to you first, and then if they so choose to do donate now, pay later, then they're going to come to our platform. But it's you can solicit them, do everything that you need to do to make sure if you want to, I don't want to say upsell because we're not selling, but like if you want to, show them other initiatives you're doing or talk to them about an event that you're having or, whatever you're doing, it's all available. you know, we don't get in the way of that.
Are there marketing materials to help? Like, does your company provide content for us to say, look, we're now offering this, new method of donating?
We'll give you some examples of some templates that we're doing, as well as we have a customer success team, and their job is to work with you and come up with ideas and help you and figure out what's the way that your donor base is resonating with the product. You know, not every donor base is going to resonate the same way. Not every messaging is going to work the same way, which is another reason why we thought it was really important for us not to be a SaaS company. Sometimes these things take time, and we didn't want nonprofits spending, $500, $600, $700 a month while we're trying to figure out how their specific donor base is going to be utilizing DMPO.
I would like to see an example of a capital campaign if you have one.
I can look one up. I don't want to have one at the tip of my fingers, but I can certainly send some examples. I have everyone's email.
Put my email in the chat, because
Mhm.
to me, that would, for my own internal needs, I think, that would be the best way to talk to the generation that would probably be a naysayer.
Mhm.
Because they've already been into pledges. So this is another way to pledge.
Correct.
And that's why I would like to have it before I presented this, because they've already had a buy now, pay
Sure.
later. It's been in the form of a pledge.
Yep.
So that would, I think, help soften the beach, as they say.
Sure. Yeah, and happy to. I'll look up some examples that we have, and I can send them over to you via email. I would tell you the other product we have, just so I'm, come full circle, make sure we're talking about both of them, is we have a product called Accelerate. And Accelerate is a loan program for nonprofits, but it's a loan program that's not tied to real estate. So it's designed to fund faster and quicker, and there's no restrictions on funds. So we can loan a nonprofit as low as $25,000, as much as $1 million. We can typically fund within 6 weeks, and it takes just basic information that we need, and we don't need collateral. We don't need, hey, we're going to put a note, we want to have a lien on your, office building or whatever like that. It is solely based on donations, what you have brought in over the last 2 to 3 years. It's the interest rate is prime plus a point or two, depending on where the market is. So it's very competitive interest rate. It's candidly better than you'll probably get at almost any bank at this point. And a lot of banks don't lend to nonprofits, because you're nonprofits. So why would they lend to you? You're not making a profit.
Well, I think, just for our conversations, I think in the state of New Jersey, we have like 36,000 nonprofits.
Mhm.
So some of the people who would view themselves as financially conservative would say that we have to be wary about supporting a nonprofit economy that can't support itself.
Yes. Yeah. Which is, again, why, and we don't agree with it, which is why we created the Accelerate program, to be able to loan money to nonprofits as fast as possible. I mean, when you say, like, everyone who works at Be Generous has been in nonprofit technology for years and years and years. I mean, we've heard all the horror stories. Like, there are tons of nonprofits who can do so much good and have so much impact, but for lack of funds, they can't get it all done. And so our mission is to figure out how to get them the funds as fast as possible. But I can literally loan a nonprofit $1 million in 6 weeks. It'll take a little under 6 weeks, and they could have $1 million, and there's no restriction on funds.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, we think so. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to get funds as fast as possible in nonprofits' hands.
Do you have a reference of a nonprofit that's currently working with you that we could talk with?
Oh, absolutely. We can provide tons of references for you. And typically how we do references, we do try, what we don't do is just put all of our customers up on our website for everyone to call, because then what happens is everyone wants to call them and talk to them, and then they can't do their mission. So typically what we have happen when we're in the kind of the cycle of evaluation, when we get to the point where references are requested and needed, we connect you with 1 or 2 people to talk to. We find out what you want to find out about, because sometimes they want to say, hey, what's the onboarding process look like? And that may be a different call than someone who just got done running a capital campaign, right? And so we just find out what you want to do or what you want to learn, and we connect you.
No, I just think that when you're trying to change mindsets, it helps to have all your due diligence done ahead of time, so that you're able to keep the conversation going and not have it smashed.
Yep. Oh, I agree. And I've had plenty of conversations smash. There's lots of fun.
I have to jump off, but I have to tell you, I'm glad that I jumped on, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Chip. And Lauren, you knock it out of the ballpark all the time with great presenters. So I will wait to hear something about a capital campaign and follow up with you.
Okay.
And I just appreciate your time, and I'll be doing some research. So
Wonderful.
and I'm sorry that I have to leave early, but I usually I can do that because there's like 30 people on the call. And I can get to my 4 o'clock, but I'm gonna have to excuse myself personally this time. But thank you very much.
Yeah, happy to have a conversation.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, is there anything else I can answer?
I had another specific question. I wonder if you've seen any changes in the recurring donation space, if it enhances it, if it sort of supplements it, if if it's changed the way people look at that sort of tool.
Yeah, I don't know that it's changed yet, other than the fact that on many levels, the reoccurring donation space is kind of dying a little bit. You've got a younger generation that doesn't really want to be locked into what they view as an open-ended commitment to a nonprofit. And so what we do is we're kind of a really good happy medium, right? We're right in the middle, where it is reoccurring in the concept that they're paying on a monthly basis, but it's not a forever. Right? So there is a ending to it, and then it gives a nonprofit the ability to re-up them, right? Which is what's really interesting. So when you get towards the end, like I say, it's a 6-month repayment plan, right? When you get to month 5, why wouldn't the nonprofit reach out and say, thank you so much for your gift of whatever it was. Over the last 6 months, we've been able to do this because of your generosity. Would you consider redoing that? And you're asking that donor. It's a better donor experience than be like, hey, give us $25 a month. And then what you're going to get from us is a tax receipt at the end of the year, and maybe a very generic newsletter once a quarter.
Does Be Generous have those sorts of reporting metrics? I mean, my CRM now, I can kind of look quickly and say donors haven't given in this quarter. Who are they? How to reach out.
Yeah, so we can look at your average donation size. We can look at all your donors. We can tell, when different payment plans are up. But, we would say you should export that into your CRM to be able to do even deeper study, right? And understand it better. Like what we can't tell you is, if someone gave, are they a lapsed donor? Like your CRM should be able to tell you that, but we can't tell you that. So that's why we make it very easy for you to export it in.
That's great.
What else can I answer? Any other questions?
Well, I think this has been really interesting. It's not something that I've really looked into. It's not something my team has been talking about. So it's pretty exciting to see. I mean, I kind of laughed when you were saying like what those conversations around adding credit cards to the website would have been like. And I kind of feel like we're in that moment now with this kind of technology. So it'll be exciting to talk to my team about it. I don't know that it's something we would pursue in the near future, but I think it's definitely something we're going to have to consider at some point.
Yeah.
It's the first baby step for us.
Yeah, I really think within 5 years, the donate now, pay later option is going to be pretty much ubiquitous across the nonprofit space. You're just going to have to. Just like if you go to almost any online retailer right now, you can do buy now, pay later.
So I do have one last question. If the donor just completely disappears, they made a $5,000 pledge and they completely disappeared, and you're not able to get in touch with them for some realignment of the payment schedule, what ends up happening? Does that go on their credit record?
Yeah, so if they completely disappear, we have a couple options to us. If they disappear because of fraud, so they fraudulently gave, right, they did something that was fraudulent, then we can go after them to get that money for as long as we have to, right? I mean, we just can. But most of the time, if they're disappearing, it's because of financial hardship or something, and they just don't want to talk to us. We write off the debt. We just write it off. We don't go after them. We're not taking them to court. We're not calling them at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning saying, hey, where's your $100 payment? Like, we just don't do that. And the reason is is, again, another conscious decision we made, is that we pretty much are pretty sure that if we had a very heavy-handed collection approach and it got out and all nonprofits knew it, we would never have a business because no nonprofit would work with us, right? So like, it's kind of like, it's a little bit in preservation. We'd like to stay in business, but it's also why we do a pretty good job in the beginning to make sure that the person who says they're going to give $5,000 really can give 5,000.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. It's very interesting to learn about this product.
Yeah, happy to do it. Well, great. I mean, if there's no other questions, happy to wrap things up, and certainly happy to continue having conversations and answer questions and about either one of the products.
Chip, is there any way to receive information that we can share with our other colleagues?
Yeah, so I can send you a whole slide deck that we went through, that they'll be able to read through, and then I can, my email will be in there, but I'll send it directly to you, Lauren, and then you can disseminate however you want to have it disseminated.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
And everyone who attended. I look forward to our next upcoming session. Erica Wasserstrom had already mentioned she's excited. So thank you, Chip, for leading off in this hot weather, at least, or this summer weather. And we'll meet again.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.